All right, everybody, welcome back. We are here with another review for you guys. We are back from our 2 week break, and we are excited to get you guys another review here. And we are starting off pretty strong, in my opinion. This is a good one. This is a good one for sure. But yeah, so Trent, you want to let everybody know what we're watching and kind of give your first initial
Yes,
reaction?
we are watching or have watched and are discussing the first Spider-Man movie, or the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
Yep.
And boy, was it a treat,
Yes,
especially
for
compared to a
sure.
lot of the other movies we've been watching. This one I would say is a leg up above a lot, well, pretty much all the movies we've seen so far.
Yeah, yeah, for
It was
sure.
fun. It was a fun one.
Yeah,
It was fun going back to it and thinking about it more critically.
yeah.
I had some issues with it. There's some things that I think were a little rough and weren't as well done as I think they should have been. But overall, I thought it was pretty. It was really well done and entertaining, and a good story, good characters, good villain.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was great.
for sure. For
What
sure.
were
Yeah.
a lot of your initial thoughts after watching this?
Yeah, of course, it was far better than a lot of the stuff we've watched. Not a whole lot of complaints, really, with the
Hmm.
story. I have some, like, more technical complaints, but maybe you'll help me see some of the some of the issues with the story. I can't remember having too many. I think there's one thing that we could kind of work through,
Hmm.
but yeah, I thought the story was pretty darn solid. Uh,
Hmm.
I want to get right into the story. I guess we can.
Sure.
So, I don't
So this
know.
is an origin story for Spider-Man, which is the first live action origin story we've ever gotten. And this one, this movie was obviously coming off of the X-Men, Blade. So this is kind of like the Renaissance period of superhero movies during this time, because before all this, like they didn't have anything. Most of the movies it come out were not great, and the superhero movies in this genre. And so this
Uh-huh.
one came coming out, and it definitely made a big splash, I guess, in not just in superhero movies, but movies in general. Like this movie, from what I think I read this. It was up to that point. It was the highest grossing movie of all time after its box office run, and it had the highest opening weekend ever by a lot. And so financially, it was a huge success, a huge win for them. And however, this movie, it took forever for this to happen. Like, they've been talking about doing a Spider-Man movie for years, and just never came to fruition. And then Sony finally and Raimi finally was able to put it together. There was a handful of other directors that were considered before Sam Raimi, James Cameron being famously one of them. And, and I think he even had a script and everything, but they just never went with it. And but
Yeah.
Sam Raimi was chosen, and boy, was it a just brilliant choice. And I think he knew how to write this character and how to tell the story and do it really well, especially for that time. And and there are some cheesy aspects to it, but for the most part, like, especially for 2000 and 2002, it was a pretty well received and pretty well done. Even visually, it was just a well done movie. But talking about the story, so as we get to this, we're it's an origin story of Spider-Man. We're learning, how Spider-Man got bitten by a spider, how he got his powers. We're learning about Uncle Ben and what happens to him, and what created the Spider-Man character. And man, yeah, from the beginning, I just was so impressed with how they set up his character.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the first 10 minutes, we knew everything we needed to know about Peter Parker. We learned about what he's like at school. How he's kind of like a geek and a nerd. No one really likes him, and but he has this girl that he loves, and he's trying to impress. But she obviously has a boyfriend, and so he has some jealousy, but he's even he's willing to even step up and kind of make his move on and try to get her. But so we see a little bit of courage even in him from the beginning. We see yeah, just him kind of wanting to be somebody, but never really been anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you obviously learn that you assume obviously that his parents have passed away, so because he lives with his aunt and uncle. And you get I love their dynamic even from the beginning. He's just kind of a typical teenager, and who kind of slacks off sometimes, but we show that he's late to things, and he doesn't show up on time to paint his house with his uncle, and so he has some responsibility issues, which is interesting. I mean, you see that early on because that's a big theme in the movie. Of course, we have that line, with great power comes great responsibility, which we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But that was kind of like the big theme of the movie is Peter Parker learning to take responsibility for what he has been given, and how to be you see him grow from the beginning to the end. You see him grow out of high school into his college years, but you see him learn and grow, and especially after the loss of his uncle, and having to take responsibility, um, following that, and then learning like how to be responsible with the powers that has been given. I love that he doesn't. He's given these powers, then he kind of uses them for his own gain, his own selfish motives, especially with the wrestling match.
Mm-hmm.
I love the scene where he's looking through the newspaper, because he saw that Mary Jane's boyfriend, he got a new car as a gift. So he's like, "Oh, I'm jealous. I want to impress her. So I'm gonna try and buy myself a car." So you see a little bit of like insecurity and jealousy and envy there, and
Mm-hmm.
him kind of being a little irresponsible because he's using his powers in order to win a wrestling match, in kind of unfairly, sort of,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not, but and then he wins the match, but he doesn't get the money, and then he lets that guy go, and then that leads to Uncle Ben being killed, and then him having to take responsibility for that, and realize, oh wow, that was my fault, and it's because of my negligence, it's because of my selfishness, because I was clouded
Yeah.
by that, and I was using my powers for my own good, for my gain, for my selfishness, for what I want in order to impress Mary Jane. But
Mm-hmm.
that ended up resulting in his uncle's death, and so him having to live with that and take responsibility for that was just so helpful for his character early on.
Yeah. It,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
it's
ahead.
kind of like what you would expect from him as a teenager, is to
Mm-hmm.
go in that direction with his powers at first, and right off the bat he makes this seemingly small decision to go wrestle to get money for a car, but it results in ultimately his uncle getting killed. And so
Mm-hmm.
he right off the bat sees that he does have a huge responsibility with these powers, and
Right.
there are consequences to his actions because his powers are so great that
Mm-hmm.
the consequences are like equal to the power.
Exactly. And like,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna kind of move because one thing I liked when we were kind of seeing him as Peter Parker was getting his powers at the same time we were watching the
Mm-hmm.
villain gain his powers,
Yes,
and
I
it's a
love that.
very cool contrast where as we're watching uh, Peter Parker, this nerdy nobody, getting powers to be someone great. We're seeing this guy that has everything,
Mm-hmm.
getting his powers so he doesn't lose all that he has, and we see his motivations of wanting to hold on to everything that he has. He has to, prove that he has this technology for the government and stuff, and he has to succeed in this task so that he doesn't lose everything he has, his company, his basically his family, and all these things. And it's just and we're going back and forth side by side, and it's like the moment Peter Parker gets bit and turns into Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
Norman Osborn is in the tank getting the serum to
Becoming Green
become
Goblin. Yeah.
strength, to get his strength and become eventually the Green Goblin. And we're
Mm-hmm.
watching these two guys both, but like it worked so well in showing, they showed us who these guys are and their motives, and they're getting their powers all at the same time, and it was going back and forth, and it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really well done. I definitely noticed that, and it was just, I think, helpful, to follow both the characters at the same time, and until they eventually merged paths, and it just, yeah, it was just good storytelling, and helped set up the villain, help us learn who he is, while we're learning who the hero is, and it keeps us engaged, because, like, I'd say there's a lot that happens in the first, well, really 2 acts of the film, but really just in setting up Spider-Man and who he is, and him getting his powers. Like, I mean, he doesn't get his final Spider-Man suit until like over an hour into the movie, you know. But that's okay. It was well told and well done leading up to that, and we were, engaged and wanting to learn who this character is and what he's going to do, and especially now that he has these powers, like what does it look like for him to take responsibility, and while watching Norman Osborn and learning who he is, and this is Peter Parker's best friend's father, and so even seeing that dynamic and those issues, and all that comes with that, like that was really well done as well, and creating another layer of conflict and whatnot. So I enjoyed that. But I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, there's really, I would say, a lot that happens in the first, like, even just hour of the film. But that was good. It kept us engaged, and we
Yeah,
wanted
it
to.
wasn't too much. Like I don't
Right.
think there's any point where I'm like lost or confused. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, granted, I've seen this movie so many times, so
Yeah. Right.
but so
Right.
I know this movie back and forth. But yeah, like I even watching it critically, I didn't feel lost or confused or
Mm-hmm.
wasn't sure what was happening, even though so many things were happening, and we were, of course, beginning of any movie, we're getting introduced to a lot of characters, and the setups were all pretty good, and we are
Mm-hmm.
getting to know them, and
Yeah.
just the environments they were in. Like we got MJ, Harry, and Peter all in high school, so of course we kind of see them all at once because they're all in high school. So we just get introduced to them right away, and we're getting introduced to who they are, their backgrounds, and all these things. But it seemed to work, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And like they're three very different characters,
Mm-hmm.
um, and but they all have stories, they all have arcs, and yeah, it was well done. Even Harry, this really sets up his character in the later movies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we helped us see, his kind of his desire to impress his father, but seeing that his father is, kind of sees him as a failure, and sees him as someone who's not amounting to anything. But
Mm-hmm.
he's more appreciative, or more inclined to see the success of Peter, and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
that, while not really acknowledging his son. And so you
Yeah,
kind
his
of get
son
that
gets very
tension, that
sidelined by
jealousy.
his father. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right, for sure. And by the end of the movie, you have, obviously, him. It sets up his, what we're going to see in the next 2 movies, is he's becoming the Hobgoblin, and wanting to take revenge for his father, because he thinks that Spider-Man killed his father, and whatnot, and that. began here, because he still loves his dad, and he's still obviously broken after his death, and he wants to, yeah, he wants to see vengeance, and he thinks Spider-Man obviously is responsible for what happened. And it obviously is his best friend, and he finds out in the next movie that it's Peter, and then that continues to progress that story thread.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think yeah, like I said, Peter's arc and his story was just really well told. I don't think I have any issues with it. He actually had a story. He actually had faults and failures that he had to overcome, and of course, and then you have the line, with great power comes great responsibility, which is the theme of this movie, and a line that has been used in other Spider-Man films in its own ways, or completely butchered in more recent Spider-Man films that I know of. I I heard that line. That was used in Madam Web, and I was just like, that's ridiculous. Anyways, that's stay tuned for next episode, maybe,
Yeah.
likely.
So before we get into that line and stuff, I do want to kind of circle back here, because we were talking about how like Peter Parker, like he clearly has faults, and we see that in the beginning. One thing I noticed is that for what's his name, Norman Osborn, he seemed like such a perfect guy and very faultless all the way up until he gets the serum and kills like the assistant or whatever. And then we kind of see him turn to very angry man. But before that, he was very nice, and well, I mean, we kind of saw that he was pushing his son away a little bit, but it was almost like it was like a very fatherly thing where he was like, I expect more of you. You're kind of being lazy, you need to be better. Like a very fatherly. It was the way he was doing it at that point. It was almost like a very good fatherly pushing of him to be better. So
Right.
like we see him as like this very good man, and then he gets the serum, and because like he feels his life falling apart, so he has to get the serum and do the human trial to get the grant. But we do see him as this perfect man until that, and then we kind of see him, and it's just such a great contrast with Peter. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's given great power, but he uses it for his own
Yeah.
selfish motives and means,
Yeah.
in order to reach his selfish ends. And
Yeah.
so yeah, you see good contrast
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And
So
then Peter
and
uses his powers for good in order to help others and save others.
yeah, well, he does something bad and realizes, and then he corrects himself, and that's just a huge
Repents,
thing.
yeah.
Like Green Goblin, he does something bad, he doesn't correct himself, he just falls deeper into what he's doing.
Right.
And yeah, this line of with great power comes great responsibility is so heavily a theme in this movie. Like it is the theme. Like Green Goblin even says at one point, "We are who we choose to be." When he captures Spider-Man and has him on the roof, and it's just like you choose your path. Like he even realizes that, but he's choosing to be this evil man that kills people and does these things. And Spider-Man is choosing to do good with he's taking responsibility for his actions and helping people with his powers.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just kind of shows that like whether you choose the way of evil or the way of good, the path will be difficult either way, but you always have a choice. And like that's kind of the theme that I was seeing a lot.
Yeah, and then you get to that line, and Uncle Ben, he he wants to confide in his nephew, and he wants to help him. He wants to, he's recognizing something's changed, and that's what Peter needs to hear at that time in that moment, but he kind of refuses to hear him, and then he goes off and doesn't go to the library. Obviously, he goes to the
Mm-hmm.
wrestling match, and he's trying to win this wrestling match in order to get the car and get the girl. And so he disregards Ben's advice in that moment, but then he learns that, oh, he's right, and I have this great power, and if I don't take responsibility, people are going to get hurt. Those around me are going to get hurt, which he learns by the end of the movie. And when Mary Jane finally, realizes that she loves him, but he kind of pushes her away because he knows that because he has this great power, he's going to hurt those that are around him, and so he's taking responsibility in that, and that he even gets the girl, but he has to let her go because he knows the cost of being close to someone when you have these great powers. That's the responsibility you have to accept. And so he learns that by the end of the film. We see very clearly, and
Yeah, that's kind of getting into his character development.
yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Do you want to get into the third act? Is there anything else in the first two acts? I would say like one of the issues I kind of had was some of the kind of the pacing of the film. Like I said, I feel like there was a lot that happened in the first hour, and then even the third act. Well, actually, I would say in the third act, even the fight between Green Goblin and Spider-Man was kind of rushed. It felt like they had the scene with the kids and Mary Jane on the pier, and then after that's resolved, then we go to the graveyard or wherever, and then we have the fist fight, which was really entertaining, really fun, really well done fight. Really dark and gritty, and I love how Spider-Man just gets completely beaten up. Like his mask is all ripped, he's bloody. He takes a beating, which I really appreciate. Just helping us see like this is pretty serious, and his life's on the line. But and then you fight, and then you have the final scene where Green Goblin tries to trick him, and then he dies, and it's over.
Yeah.
I what?
Oh, nothing.
Oh, I just feel like it was kind of like I feel like the third act was kind of rushed a little bit. While we like kind of had so much going on, and then we're like, okay, we're at the third act, and then it's like, okay, let's just get this over, like kind of get through this, and I just feel like it could have been a little longer or drawn out more, maybe.
Yeah. Well, so this is So before the third, this is one of the plots that we haven't really touched on, which was before the third act, which was one of my issues. Kind of, I can see how it could fit, but it also felt kind of forced in my opinion, which was the Harry and MJ love triangle. And that took up a lot of time of the movie. Very heavy part of it. And
yeah, so that's I think that's what I was kind of getting at when I was saying there's a lot going on. Is like that was one thread that I remember as I'm watching this movie. That's like, okay, it's just kind of. I mean, it adds a good dynamic to the characters, but
for
it's
sure,
it's just that much more.
It worked in some ways, but I think that it was put in there because of who Harry becomes and his future. It was like kind of a touch to his future. They're trying to create a tension between him and Peter, and the girl being in the way was just a good way of doing that and setting up a possibility for, him becoming the Hobgoblin one day. And I think they're just working on that tension between him and Peter.
Sure.
But yeah, it did kind of work because it did fit in their characters kind of, and it brought some depth to them.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of shows like that Peter was the loser. He wasn't the one that gets the girl. He was the one that is overlooked, and the fact that she was falling in love with Spider-Man, and he had opportunities to say, "Hey, I'm Spider-Man," but because he was learning to take responsibility and know the dangers of who he was and these powers, like he was being the hero by not telling her. And I thought that definitely added depth to his character, and that was kind of there. Like, and if there wasn't that tension, like with Harry liking her and her kind of choosing Harry over him, and her falling in love with Spider-Man over. It's just, there was a lot there, but
Right.
it did kind of show that like he wasn't a desirable man, like he was just kind of a loser, and yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that did kind of help us help develop his character more. Um,
But some of the
but yeah,
pacing of it
so
was for sure, yeah.
right. I think overall, the third act was fine. Like it was intense, and
Yeah.
it kept me. I just always remember even growing up. And this was one of the first movies I remember seeing in theaters. I don't know if you remember seeing in theaters, but I do.
Not really.
2002, because I was what, 6, which is crazy. So I just watched it with my almost 5 year old. But I was 6 when I saw it in theaters. I remember mom and dad taking us. I know you went and saw it.
Oh, okay.
But I do remember, like, it might have been the first movie I saw in theater. I don't know. It was one of the first. We were living in Flagstaff, and but I
That's weird
remember
that you could
seeing
even
it.
remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember at all. I think I can kind of remember maybe seeing the second one, but
Really?
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
remember seeing all
I
all
don't
three of them in
necessarily
theaters.
remember like seeing it,
Yeah.
but
And
I
this one
think
was
I
pretty
can.
memorable for me because I loved Spider-Man so much. It
Hmm.
was just, favorite superhero. I had all the toys. I had the I don't remember the silly string web shooter.
Oh yeah,
You remember that?
yeah,
That was
for
so cool.
sure.
That was from this. I'm pretty sure it was Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
It was a toy made for that. I remember all the promotional stuff. I remember like the Coke cans with
Oh
or Dr.
yeah.
Pepper and Coke with Green Goblin, Spider Man on it. I remember, yeah, just getting all the toys and all the
Yeah.
promotional stuff. And even though, I was 6, but excuse me, I still remember that. And I remember in the theaters. I just remember even just growing up watching this movie, just intense that third act was, and that final fight in the graveyard. And but it was always just like just an exciting, intriguing scene watching Spider-Man
Yeah.
fight the Green Goblin. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, just super fun. It's fun, a fun story, because so reason I remember seeing this is his dad took us. It was you, me, and
Hmm.
dad. And at the end of the movie, when we saw mom, I told her, "Mom, it was such a great movie, and I didn't have to close my eyes at all." And then and dad's like, "What? No, you had to close your eyes for one scene." And I was like, "What? I don't remember." And it was the kissing scene. Apparently, he
Oh.
asked us to close our eyes. I don't think I did, or something like that. Like, I was caught red-handed.
That's funny.
I just distinctly, that's like one of like a distinct
Yeah,
memory that I have. It's funny.
that's funny.
Yeah. But I was so excited because, like, at least for all the fighting and stuff, like, I was able to watch the whole movie.
Yeah.
I was so young, so it was like the first, like, probably PG-13 movie I was able to, like, watch all the way, for the most part, all the
Yeah.
way through. And so
Yeah.
that was pretty
That's
fun.
great.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, like, I did enjoy the third act for the most part. It just, like I said, it felt
Yeah.
little rushed, could have been drawn out a little
Yeah.
more. Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
we
know,
can
dark.
kind of work through that, yeah.
Yeah.
But first I want to just let you guys know we do have Patreon. I know you guys heard it at the beginning and you're hearing it again, but if you guys want to subscribe and listen to us do 10-minute reviews, we'll be having exclusive reviews there, and we will even be able to give you guys the opportunity to comment on the posts in there, and we will comment a movie that you want us to review, and we can put it on our list to review in our 10-minute reviews. And
Yeah.
yeah, just your support, we greatly appreciate it, and it help us to keep making these reviews and these shows for you guys.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of already talked about character development. You kind of talked about how with at the very end of the movie with where he lets the girl go, and but he kind of, he goes from a very dumb, irresponsible kid to
Mm-hmm.
a hero. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
goes to saving lives and protecting people and being a selfless man and looking out for the well-being of others rather than himself.
Right.
Yeah, and then Dark Knight of the Soul was
So
kind of
was that?
started when Green Goblin had to make a choice when he got
Mm-hmm.
the kids and the girl, and that was kind of like I think the beginning of the Dark Knight of the Soul, and
Yeah.
then it kind of fades away when he saves them, but then it kind of comes back again when he's getting beat up and he's about to die, like Green Goblin's just kicking his butt, and so it's kind of like a dual Dark Knight of the Soul. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so. Because he has to make that choice, which was kind of, I don't know, like there wasn't a whole lot of consequences from that because he was able to save both Mary Jane and the kids.
Yeah.
Um, it, it reminded me of the Dark Knight, when Batman, which is super impactful scene, when he's given a choice between Harvey Dent and Rachel, because they're both strapped to bombs, and so he knows that whoever he chooses to go rescue, he is likely the one that's going to be saved, and they're the ones going to die. And then of course Joker tricks him while he says that Harvey's here, but it was actually Rachel, and Rachel was where Harvey thought Harvey was. So he thinks to go after Rachel, but he goes after Harvey, and he gets to Harvey, but it's Harvey and not Rachel, and then Rachel dies. Anyways, but there was consequences to that because he wasn't able to save both of them. One of them
Mm-hmm.
dies, and he has to live with that. Here, they kind of set that up, and Green Goblin's like
Yeah.
saying you have to choose the kids or the girl. Like, it was interesting is they kind of set up the Gwen Stacy death
Yeah.
scene in that because you're close to the bell, or I don't know if there was a bell tower, but it was kind of similar
No,
setting.
the bridge is where Gwen dies in the
Okay, yeah, yeah.
comics. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So they kind of set it up. So it's like, oh, is she actually gonna die?
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand why they didn't kill her. They wanted to use her for the other two movies.
Yeah.
But like, man, how much more impactful would have that been for his
Yeah.
character and for him learning how to take responsibility if she actually had to die? Because in that scenario, yeah, you choose the kids, you save the kids. That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty straightforward. Though it's an incredibly difficult decision to make. And
Yeah. Yeah, I
but
kind of
yeah,
saw it like as it I mean, I was looking on the bright side of it, I guess.
hmm,
Is the reason it was the way it turned out was the way it did is because that was his moment of taking responsibility of his great powers, and he knew
hmm,
he had the powers to save them both, and this was his moment to take responsibility and
okay,
finally do it.
because he has great power. Okay,
Yeah. So it's
yeah,
like
I
that
can
that's
see
what
that.
he had to change. That was like what he had to change in order to overcome the Dark Knight of the Soul.
Uh
Was
huh.
he had to this was his moment. He is taking responsibility. He is using his powers to save everyone, and that's what he does.
Okay,
But yeah,
yeah,
the
I
impact
can see
of
that.
like one of them of him failing, but it him doing the right thing but still failing,
Hmm.
like him struggling with that would have been a great story, but I mean, this movie was made for kids, so
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I get it.
yeah.
Excuse me.
Yep, yep, yep.
Um, yeah, and then
Yeah, and then his sacrifice was
uh
I mean, he was putting his life on the line the whole time. I mean,
right,
by going up against Green Goblin, facing his enemy.
right, yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else related to this story?
Yeah, so this is something I noticed at the end. It was kind of
Uh
like
huh.
it's kind of a lot of it was kind of put into that last scene. So you know how in the very beginning of the movie, he's narrating, Peter Parker's narrating, and he
Hmm.
says that this movie is a love story. I remembered that line at the very end of the movie, and I thought that was very
Hmm.
interesting because what I noticed was that we hit all these marks: the hero's character development, hero's sacrifice, hero's dark night of the soul, and overcoming the dark night of the soul, all in that last scene. So
Hmm.
in the beginning of the movie, it's about him chasing after the girl, him wanting the girl. He's like, this is a love story. He's trying to get the girl, and the character development was that with his powers, he had to learn to let her go, which we already talked about, and he had to learn to let her go for her own good to protect her.
Hmm.
The Dark Night of the Soul was when he realized he had to let her go and tell her that he didn't love her to protect her. And then the hero's sacrifice was he had to sacrifice what he wanted most in the world, which was the girl, and
Hmm.
basically like what his dream life would be like with the girl, and he sacrificed that relationship to protect her,
Right.
and what he had to overcome for to what he had to change to overcome the Dark Night of the Soul was he had to let her go. And
Hmm.
yeah, so I thought that was an interesting plug that in the like he in the beginning of the movie, the very first scene, he's saying how this is a love story. At the very end of the movie, he's letting the girl go.
Hmm.
She's telling him that he loves her, and he's having to let her go to protect her and be the hero that he needs to be.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, good job seeing that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was well done. Yeah, it just helps us um yeah, see his character growth pretty clearly, and that
Mm-hmm.
he's changed. He's different from
Yeah.
the beginning to the end. At the end of the
Yeah.
movie, he's a different person than
Absolutely.
he was at the beginning, which is what we
Yeah.
want in our
Yeah.
characters.
If the guy in the beginning, like if she was telling him that he loved her, he would no doubt go with her and live his
Hmm.
life with her,
Yes.
and no questions asked. Even when he first gets his powers, if that had happened, he would have gone with her and
Hmm.
been, yes, I'm in love with you. And but by the end of the movie, yeah, he's completely different, and he makes a choice to protect her,
Yeah.
which is we find out is a theme that kind of goes throughout the next two movies as well, and we'll get into that, and
Hmm.
we'll kind of see how that progresses. And a lot of the themes in this movie transfer over to the next movies,
Definitely.
and we will see how that all progresses and how it all works together.
Hmm.
Um, One thing that was pretty good about this movie, the women were a lot less sexualized than all the other superhero
Hmm.
movies. There was
Hmm.
still a few scenes like with the wrestling scenes where they were all dressed
Oh yeah,
skimpy, but other than
that's
that, I
pretty
mean, it was
typical wrestling though. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um,
But right, yeah, for the
but
most
yeah,
part.
compared to the other superhero movies, this was very mild for sure.
Hmm. Very much.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything else.
What do you think about more technical aspects of the
Oh yeah,
movie?
yeah. Um,
CGI.
yeah.
Like obviously
CGI
they
was
went with more practical uh
yeah, yeah. Sam
effects.
Raimi's
Like when
known
it
for
comes to
being very
the suits.
practical.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of like other movies in this time. I mean, compared to the other superhero movies during this time, this
Hmm.
one was really good. This one, of course, needed a lot of CGI
Hmm.
because I mean, you got a guy flying through New York City, and well, you got two guys flying through New York City and all these things. So it wouldn't have been easy to make such a great movie with very few scenes with CGI. And I think they were like at that point where like, okay, we got enough CGI technology, like we can make this movie, and they did. And of course, with the times, like CGI back then doesn't look that great. Like you can just so tell.
Hmm.
But
Well, you can
but
also tell today, so it
oh yeah, yeah,
doesn't change much.
yeah. No, yeah. Compared,
Well, I mean, I
well,
get what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Like,
We're on the bottom of a curve of CGI skill right
at
now,
least with
but
superhero movies, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's just a few scenes. I mean, it was good. Like there wasn't like I wasn't like, wow, this is just terrible
Hmm.
CGI and it looks awful. Like no, they made it look as best they could with what they had for sure.
Yeah, I think they did a great
And
job, even with the web swinging through New York
yeah.
City and stuff. I think it was for what it was at that time, having never done anything like this. Like I thought it was really well done, and didn't
Hmm.
nothing really stood out. There was a couple of scenes that was like, oh, it was a little iffy, but for the most part, like I thought, kudos to them for what they did, and I think Sam Raimi did a great job using as much practical effects as they could, um, and even just doing the best they could with the web swinging and making it as practical as possible while still
Hmm.
using some CGI.
Yeah,
I
when they
think it
could,
was
I I think there was a few times where they had maybe not Toby, but some guy flying through the air.
yeah, definitely. So like that
Yeah,
was well done. And
yeah,
like of course
for
the web
sure.
scene gets better. Like I love Spider-Man 2 and the
Hmm.
fight scenes in that one. Those stand out as just really well done, even well
Yeah,
choreographed fights and stuff.
yeah, for sure. And
For
I imagine the budget for this one was quite a bit lower than the budget
mhm.
for the second one. Like probably
Yeah,
significantly lower because
right,
this was a big risk movie for them, you know, with the
right. There's
huge
been
fails
never
of
been
all the
anything
other
like
Marvel
this.
movies. Yeah. It's something new, all a lot of aspects of it that like I guarantee this was a lot lower. But yeah.
Right.
Um casting, I guess we could talk about that. I kind of laugh at it. Like, the actors are great. Like, I think the actors were great. I love Toby as
Uh huh.
Spider Man and stuff, but
Yeah, and
they're so
Kirsten Dunst
old.
is Mary Jane. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the
there's
30-year-olds in high school is kind of.
yeah. Well, like
I
I
mean,
look at
at
their
least they were
teacher.
consistent. Uh
Yeah,
huh.
I look at
Yeah,
their teacher and he's like
like the same
32
age.
and I'm like you guys have you're standing like he looks like one of
Yeah.
you guys like
Yeah.
he's like all telling them what to do. He's like stop acting up in school, you know. And he's like the same age as them. And
Right.
it's just I'm like you have these 30-year-olds in high school and that just doesn't work. But whatever. At least they ended the high school thing right away and put them in college
Right. Yeah,
and
they all
didn't keep
graduate
him in
in the
high
movie.
school. Yeah,
Right.
I'm glad they didn't keep him in high school for 3 movies.
Yeah. So Tobey Maguire was 26 years old.
Yeah, okay.
Um, but I think he was one of the younger ones out of that group.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, it was an interesting choice. It's what it is. They decide it was a style choice, to go with older teenager, quote unquote teenagers,
yeah.
instead of just young high schoolers, instead of working with kids, because later movies you have Andrew Garfield, who's I think he was probably like early 20s when Amazing Spider-Man 1 came out. And then
Hmm.
obviously Tom Holland was younger. He was, more a teenager and fit that teenager style vibe. And he was in high school through his 3 movies. And so it
Yeah,
was a choice that they made, and I appreciate I was okay with it because they were consistent with it, and they got him out of high school by the end of the movie, so I was like, it's
yeah,
fine,
for sure,
it's whatever. Because in the
for
next
sure.
ones, they're in high school, they're getting jobs and starting their
College, yeah,
careers and stuff. So it was fine.
yeah,
Yeah, they're in college.
for sure. Yeah, but they did. I mean, they all acted pretty good.
Yeah, acting was fine. One issue that most people have with this movie, and I did have with it was there was a lot of very cheesy, corny lines
Hmm.
throughout the movie. I mean, and maybe you could say it was like typical comic book speech. That's just
Yeah,
how it's how
yeah,
Spider-Man talks. and even Green Goblin, just those one-liners. It, but like even some of the scenes between Mary Jane and Spider-Man were just like, it was a little rough. I
Yeah,
felt like
yeah.
Kirsten Dunst, like she didn't. I feel like she didn't really know what kind of character she was playing, so she was kind of all over the place. However, like I do kind of understand like maybe why they made some choices with her character because she was she has an abusive father who's a jerk to her, so she tries to hide that, and how she hides that is with a really bubbly personality, and so when she's around her boyfriend or or Peter, she's a lot more happy and bubbly.
Hmm.
But there were just times where it's like, I just feel like she didn't really understand her character very well,
Yeah.
and I think they do better in the later movies, in the other two movies, but
Well, maybe
it
not the
was rough.
third, but yeah.
I mean, not third, but it was definitely rough in some places, and
Yeah.
it kind of stood out, and so I took issue with that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and kind of, yeah. I think Toby's acting can kind of be seen sometimes. I don't know if
uh huh.
he's. I just have never thought of him as the best actor, but
Hmm.
he did pretty well in this one, I
I
think.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, for what it was, a lot of it is the writing, um,
Hmm. Yeah,
especially when it
for
comes to
sure.
the lines and stuff and dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even Willem Dafoe, like Willem Dafoe did an incredible job playing the Green Goblin.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
we can get into comic book accuracy because I would say that the Osborns aren't super comic book accurate as far as their look. Like
Yeah.
in the comics, they have red hair and they're just different.
Yeah, for sure.
And but for the characters they create, I thought it was well done, and Willem Dafoe did an incredible job, and he was very menacing. He just played a good villain. But some of his dialogue was really rough and really cheesy and corny.
Hmm.
So it's like, it's fine. It's whatever. It's a superhero movie. It does
Yeah.
stand out like a sore thumb sometimes, but
Yeah,
that's
for
okay.
sure. Um, yeah, the music score.
Oh,
Um,
incredible.
yeah,
Uh,
I've
like
always really enjoyed this
iconic.
score. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a classic. It's a classic score. Like it's just great music.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the, you have the Batman, like the '89 Batman, and that theme. You have the Dark Knight themes. You have Spider Man, even X Men. There's just a lot of really good music scores that came out. I know Hans Zimmer did a couple of those. I can't. Well, yeah, Hans Zimmer did Dark Knight, I think, or the Dark Knight trilogy. But anyways, like yeah, just really good music scores coming out of these superhero movies during this time, and um, just very well done. Very no, I mean no complaints there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one thing I just was thinking about with the comic book accuracy is I know they had plans to do comic book accurate like a costume for
Green
Green
Goblin.
Goblin,
Yeah, they
and
did. It was like an animatronic
yeah, it's like an
mask.
animatronic like mask, and it's pretty horrifying.
Yeah, it is. I
So it kind of,
I
yeah,
I personally I feel like it could have been better. Like it might have been better if they went with that. I
yeah,
don't know. It's because the biggest thing is we get to see Willem Dafoe's face a lot more with how they did it, and so that was good.
yeah,
The only thing is his suit. I mean, it looks like a Power Rangers villain suit. Like it's
yeah.
it's a little rough.
I love the helmet, but kind of
Uh
the
huh.
rest of the suit needed a lot of work.
Yeah, I don't know. The helmet. The only thing is like the whole mouth always open, and you can like
Oh
see
yeah,
his mouth inside. It's a little weird.
yeah,
I don't know. I'm fine with it. Because it's early 2000s superhero villain. It was fine.
yeah,
I've never had any complaints for it before, and so there's no point in complaining about it now. It's what it was,
Mm-hmm.
what it is. I don't know with the style of the movie and what they set up. I don't know if there really was anything else that would have been better.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so it's fine.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to say just at all? I mean, I think we're about wrapping this one
Um,
up.
I don't think so. I think we covered everything.
Yeah. Was there anything else you want to talk about the villain? I feel like we kind of skipped over him a little bit.
I mean,
I don't
we
know.
talked about kind of the contrast between Spider-Man
Yeah,
and
definitely a
Green Goblin.
contrast and
Like I said, Willem Dafoe did a just incredible job.
yeah,
He just plays a good villain, very
yeah,
menacing, and
for
um,
sure.
yeah, his motivations were very clear and very straightforward.
Mm,
That's the one thing I do appreciate, and so I give a lot of
yeah.
kudos to them for that. Um,
Yeah, that's
him.
something that's definitely missed in some of the other superhero
Hmm.
movies we've watched is motivation for the villain.
Definitely.
And and he was just like pure evil.
Yeah.
And although like Spider-Man wasn't gonna murder him in cold blood, he like allowed him to die
Hmm.
in essentially cold blood. I mean, he
Yeah.
didn't kill him, but he allowed him to die because he knew he was evil and he needed to die.
Hmm.
And I think that was very well played out in the end because I think a lot of people want to sympathize with the villains and be like, they can change. But like, no, he was a murderer. He murdered a lot of people. Murders need to be put down. And
Hmm. Yeah, like you can have some sympathy for him at the beginning, when
yeah,
that those investors turn on him and go with the other
for
company and stuff.
sure.
But
Yeah, he's a
they make
human,
it very
and
clear.
you need to
Yeah.
understand that. And
Yeah.
he is a human creating God's image. I mean, this is a story, but he,
Yeah. I know what you mean.
but what?
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. I'm saying.
Yeah, and so we do need to understand that, but like as he is a villain and he is evil, but we see his motivations for why he's evil, and there is like the whole contrast of the taking responsibility, and you choose your path, and he said it himself, you choose your path, and that's the
Hmm.
path he chose, and that led to his ultimate destruction. And he pretended to be a changed man, like to Peter. Like he's like, Peter, it's me.
Right.
It's not the goblin. It's me. He made me do it, not me. I didn't do it. And all while he's touching on his pad to kill Spider-Man
Hmm.
and to
I thought
manipulate him.
that was really well done for us, the audience, because the whole
Yeah,
movie we're seeing like, okay, there's kind of two people. There's like kind of
yeah,
there's a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on here,
yeah,
and so you think like, oh, so is their good side of Norman? Well, maybe, and then there's kind of that tension throughout the movie. But then when you get to that scene, you realize that, oh, there isn't actually a good side. Like he is evil. Even
yeah,
the good side
yeah,
has chosen the wrong path,
yeah,
and that
exactly.
helped us see that at the end, where it's like, okay, the good Norman is now trying to kill Peter,
Yep,
and
yep,
so and then he dies.
exactly.
So
And
that was well
and
done.
he rightfully dies, and
Hmm.
he ends his terror to
Yeah,
himself
right.
with, yeah, because Peter dodged it and all that
Yeah, so
technicalities. But
well
yeah,
done.
all right. I think I'm happy
We move
with
on to rating.
that. Yes, we can rate this one.
So our highest one so far is X-Men First Class at six point
Yeah,
seven.
6.7. Does this one hit a 9?
A 9? No, it's definitely not 9. At least in my
You don't
book. I
think
don't know.
so? Think
It's
of
not.
all the other superhero movies. Like,
Okay, are we rating?
I think 10 is like the perfect superhero movie.
Okay, so we are rating superhero movies. This isn't like.
Well, okay, I guess no, I guess we can go off just movies in
I think
general.
like that's kind of where I've
Yeah.
been at.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't.
no, yeah, movies in general. I mean,
Right,
okay, so yeah, so compared to your perfect movie in your head, like a
right.
perfect movie,
Yeah.
I
So
high eights, and for me,
I
I'm
okay.
thinking
I'd say
8.7, 8.8.
okay. I give it an 8.1, and
Okay.
but that's like really high for like
Yeah.
that's high praise
Yeah.
on my scale.
Yeah.
um, do you want? So what would you say? Like I say 8.1. Did you say 8.8?
Uh, 8.7 I think is about where I'm
8.7?
at.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you want to meet in the middle at 8.4?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I think that's good. Like I this one's difficult. Like Spider-Man 2 I know is going to be a higher score for me. Um and then you have movies like Winter Soldier, Infinity War, okay, I can't even think of any other better. X2 is probably going to be pretty high. I don't know if it's not going to be this high. But you're right. There's a lot of good superhero movies coming up, and I would say my favorite superhero movie, which at this point, if I would say my favorite superhero movie of all time, it'd be Spider-Man 2. I'd have to think more about it. Are we doing Into the Spider-Verse?
Eventually.
Okay, that's one I also think about. But I think Spider-Man 2 is my favorite superhero movie. Infinity War might be number
Mm.
2. Winter Soldier might be. Those are kind of the three. I think my top three, and I would say I wouldn't give any of those more than a 9.
Mm.
I would say
Yeah. That's fair.
just as I'm thinking through my scale, and
I still look at Wolverine and see a 5.1. I'm like, man, why did we give it a 5.1? That's so generous.
yeah, that's kind of generous, especially because Captain Marvel
Even
3.8.
all
Like
these other movies, yeah.
bring it down. Yeah. It's like there's a good gap between Wolverine and Captain Marvel. I don't know if that's a fair gap. I think Wolverine's
Yeah.
a pretty bad movie.
I still, yeah,
Yeah,
I think
that's fine.
I think all I think X-Men First Class to X-Men Wolverine should all go down about a point and a half.
Maybe. Yeah. I think for saying anything about First Class, I know we've talked about this. I think we've talked about this a lot after going through it. I think First Class, take out the very skimpy, you
Yeah.
know, poorly dressed women. I think it's a very solid movie
Yeah. Yeah, for
and
sure.
well done. And
For
so
sure.
like I think like a 6.7 is okay, is
Yeah.
fair.
I think I agree on all of them. Even Captain America
Yeah,
First Avenger, like 6.4. I think
yeah,
X-Men Origins
it's a go.
Wolverine is the one that needs to go down
It
at least
might,
a
yeah.
point and a half or
I
two.
yeah. If we get down that range, I'm
Yeah, if
sure
we
we
get
will. We might
something
move that around.
squeezed around there, yeah.
That which is yeah, which is okay.
Because there is a big gap between Captain Marvel and
Hmm.
Apocalypse, which is almost
Right.
3 points. So
Yeah. We might adjust this
Wolverine's
by the end
good
of
in
the
there.
season. This just to have like a more accurate,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
concise ranking.
We were rookies with our ratings back then, so
Right.
we're
Sure.
becoming we're becoming intermediates.
Yeah. Right. So Spider
So
Man 8.4.
yeah, I think that's
Sweet.
good.
Let's do it.
Well, you want to wrap us up here?
Yeah. Thank you all for watching our first Spider-Man movie, first of many. We have a lot of Spider-Man movies coming up, and Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. I've definitely enjoyed watching this one. I look forward to watching all the others and unpacking those. I just yeah, I think this one it was really refreshing to see a good movie. Like I would say this is a good movie. It has some problems. It's cheesy. It's corny. But for the most part, it's a good movie. It's well done, good story. They have a theme. They stick to the theme. The character changes, overcomes something, and repents and becomes a better person by the end. And that's what we want to see with our characters. And so they did it well. So definitely praise to them for that. And yeah, look forward to next week. We're trying to figure out what the next movie is going to be. It's likely going to be Madam Web.
Yeah.
I just have to find a way to watch it because it's no longer in my theater because no one was seeing it, so they took it out of the theater. Um, so we'll have to figure that out so that
we'll
we
find
can
it. We'll find a way.
we can so that we can rate that movie and talk about it.
There's
So
plenty
yeah,
of there's plenty of sketchy websites you can go to watch a full
sure,
movie.
yeah. Okay. I'll upload some virus on my laptop. Anyways,
All right, yeah.
so thank you all for watching.
Thank
we'll see
you,
you
and
guys next week.
yeah,
And
subscribe to our Patreon, listen to our
yes,
talk about the Stan Lee cameo and end credit scenes. So find us there, and thank you.
all right.
All right,
Peace out.
bye.
Bye.